We set up 3M's Music in 2014, essentially because we had the Smokehouse Studios in Wapping, which is a well-established old studio down there opposite Tobacco Dock. And we needed something to do with it. So we came up with this idea that we would do one album projects with well-known musicians who sort of weren't of much interest to the majors anymore, but still had a following. So that meant we started off with Hamish and Molly from Average White Band and Steve Ferroni playing the drums. That was and they did a project called 360. That was what he called his band. And then we had Jar Wobble. We had the Sharks, which is Chris Spedding, Snips from the original Sharks band, and Paul Jones from the Sex Pistols. And it was a way of sort of fusing. We made the label really to match the fact that we had the studio, because it was set up and it was in a good place. The problem was that we didn't have a very secure lease on the place, and it was required eventually by the landlord. They turned us out with 2 months' notice, effectively. So we had to dismantle the whole place, which was really tragic. I mean, they didn't really give us enough time actually to recover most of the gear. So we sold quite a lot of it. I mean, we had an absolutely enormous Kadak desk that came out of a theatre, I think. It was vast, absolutely vast. And various nice bits of kit. But most of that was sold because literally we had nowhere to put it. So we were out on the street, and that hit the label, and it wouldn't work with having to pay for studio time. Basically, it worked on the basis that we had a studio ready to bring these people into and, you know, record an album and then market it. So we had to start looking round for somewhere to replace the Smokehouse, basically, and that took us 2 years effectively to find this place, which is cheerfully known as the Lean-To in Symondshyde Farm, and it was an empty tin shed at a 45-degree angle with its roof, with nothing inside it except for a concrete floor. So we thought, we'll have this and we'll see what we can do with it. Unfortunately, I'm kind of lucky in that my band, the singer Peter, and the bassist Martin are both builders, effectively. Peter is a sort of carpenter and general builder, and Martin is a sort of plumber and heating engineer. So between them, they constructed Darkwood Studios. The studio is the heart of the business model, effectively. I mean, we formed the label to service the studio because it was a way of dealing with the product that came from the studio. So we've got the infrastructure of a proper label, which is very, very handy, but we have to have the studio in order to make the business model work, because the studio being here can produce the product then that the label will disseminate. And we want to basically increase our catalogue. I mean, we've got a small catalogue at the moment by any standards, but it still generates a reasonable amount of revenue. And my view is, if we're careful about what we do, that we should be able to make it business worthy, fairly soon. Going forward, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at those two areas, looking to sort of try and help younger bands who are really, really pushing on the live scene and just need some product, really, to crystallize what they're doing, and try and carry on working with some established people, but people that we know have a plan, as opposed to, just a name.
My name's James Patrick. I'm the head engineer of Darkwood Studios. I help put together the audio side of everything, help with some of the design of the acoustics. I'll be engineering here if someone books it, or I'll be assisting if another engineer or producer comes in. And so, yeah, that's pretty much my role. From the preamps to the converters, headphones, microphones, I think is a very pro spec, so you can get a great sound here. The idea was to make it as simple as possible for people. So any engineer or producer or artist can just come in and a quick explainer, and they will be able to get their head around it quite quickly. Each channel obviously has got a preamp, and then it's also got an EQ, which is really handy. Also on the console, we have a Talkback section. So, I mean, getting the Talkback right has been one of the challenges, surprisingly, but we use the Talkback section on the console. And we've also got 10 auxes on the console, so we can do headphone mixes on the console. When you're doing a drum kit and you've got 10 microphones up, just 1 to 10 out there, 1 to 10 in here, 1 to 10 in the computer, and it's just like that. I mean, I've worked in quite a few studios where you go in with a producer, and it's always daunting when you go into a new studio, no matter how experienced you are, because you haven't put it together. So I've seen where I have been confused in other studios and tried to iron those out as much as possible. Like, it'll always be a bit of a learning curve for everyone when they come in, but hopefully as little as possible. Yeah, so just simple, high-end, and people can just feel at home here straight away, hopefully, is the intention. The main interface that we're using is this Antelope. So we've got 32 I/O here. So we can do 32 in out up to 90, was it 96? And it sounds great. In terms of outboard there, we've actually got the Audient, I'm just casting a shadow there, but the Audient is just for extra pre's, just so we can get up to that 32 I/O if we need, because there's just not 32 pre's on the console. So they're just extra pre's. We've got a compressor, but mainly just for like grungy drums, if you ever want to like get a really compressed drum sound. They just sound really good. They just do, and they're 1U, so they fit in the rack. They don't take up too much space. They're high quality. I know their clocking in them is very, very good. I think they're known for their clocking. Beyond that, I mean, it goes up to 96K. We've had no problems running sessions, recording all 32 channels at 96K. Everything's been fine. But yeah, in terms of monitoring, it's like, I think it's an ever evolving. You're never happy. You always want to get it better. But having said that, the KRK 9000s, I'm super happy with them. They can go really loud. They cover the full range. I did have a sub in here trying it out, but I just didn't think we needed the sub. These are just basically massive bass traps. Yeah, that's all there is to them, hanging on here. So just floor to ceiling bass traps behind both those corners. My friend Gwyn Matthias, he's a very experienced engineer. He's worked in places all through London for decades, and he helped with the design of the acoustics in this room. The idea was to make it as simple as possible. So 1 to 12 here, you plug it in and it just comes 1 to 12 on the console, and then that's straight 1 to 12 on the Antelope. So there's no patching, nothing like that. It just hopefully just works straight away. In terms of the sound in here, I'm very happy with it. Like, it's quite bright. You know, some studios you go to, and there's too much absorption, and it can feel a little bit dead, but it's quite bright. Just a couple of days ago, I had like a neo soul kind of band in here, which I'll play you a bit in a minute. And what we did, we had the drums like kind of in the corner, and we've got these big baffles you can put around them, and we got a completely dead sound. So I think it's quite versatile, is the idea. With this room, if the room has life and vibrancy, you can always, if you want a dead sound, you can always take it away. But if the room doesn't have any vibrancy, you can't really add it. So it just gives you choices, especially with drum sounds. I mean, that's when an artist comes in, often the main thing is they want to do drums. So the drum sound is pretty much the most important thing in a live room. And like with rock drums and loads like gospel or whatever, loads of drums, you want to be able to capture the room just to give air around the instrument. Otherwise, it just sounds like you're doing, it can choke the drums a little bit. So you need the air. In the Rhodes, it's just a special sounding keyboard. You start playing it and it just instantly, it just sounds right straight away. So yeah, it's a beautiful bit of kit we have there. Got various amps around. We're going to be trying to get as many different kinds of drum kits in here as possible. At the moment, we're just starting out. We're building up a collection, but ideally, I want a modern kit and a vintage kit. But I think if people just speak to me or whoever, and we can organise what they need. Also in this room, we've got a booth, a little vocal booth. So the booth is super handy because, I mean, it's not perfectly soundproof. I actually had a bass cab in there the other day and we couldn't hear anything in here. So the soundproof isn't perfect, but it's more than enough for what you need. from a booth in a facility like this. Like often I've done sessions where a band comes in, they record 3 songs, just for example, and then they're like, okay, let's do a quick like live video at the end of it. This thing is actually an amazing speaker. So we can pump, just for folder, we can pump sound into this room at a loud volume for people to play along to, basically, or for music videos or for whatever. It can go super loud. It's for like a church. It could take your head off if you wanted it to. But yeah, I think that will actually come in really useful for music videos. Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much the only thing we've really recorded here so far. I just got some mates in just to test everything. They're kind of like a neo-soul-y sort of band. It was like a 5-piece, everything live in the room, which was quite nice. So I'll just solo the drums. See, it's like a really dry sound, but this is because it was appropriate for that neo-soul kind of thing. So yeah, but this was all, you can hear the bleed. Everyone just in the room. Yeah. That's the roads. Unfortunately, there's no vocals or anything for that, but it was just a little test, and yeah, I was pleased we managed to get that like dry, tight sound, even though the room can be live if we want it to be. Yeah, that was the thinking.
We're very much open to any and all sort of or business opportunities. We're even talking to a guy who's setting up a gifting business whereby you can sort of gift people an experience, like coming in with your football club mates and doing a rock choir session, for example. So something like that. We're very much open as a commercial studio with the label. Now that gives the label the opportunity to be a bit more picky, basically, about what we do.